Harry Potter became one of the most popular literary and cinematic heroes of his time, and it was hard to imagine that anyone else within the same franchise could compete with him. So when the Fantastic Beasts story was first announced, many fans doubted whether the filmmakers could create a character as compelling who would elicit sympathy and admiration. However, J.K. Rowling and the screenwriters of Fantastic Beasts succeeded. Thus, Newt Scamander emerged a somewhat odd, introverted, yet brave, honest and kind wizard. Thanks to his role in Fantastic Beasts, he became nearly as beloved by fans as the boy who lived. Newt's story is barely described in the books. His biography is only told through the film trilogy, additional materials, and interviews with J.K. Rowling and other filmmakers. So I thought it would be interesting to trace Newt Scamander's history together, from his early years to his equally impressive fate after the main plot. Newton Artemis Fido Scamander was born on February 24, 1897 in England. He had at least one older brother, Theseus Scamander. Newt became interested in magical creatures at an early age, as his mother bred hippogriffs. By the age of 7, he was already conducting experiments with live mushrooms called orclumps in his bedroom. Before attending Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Newt purchased his first magical wand, likely from Ollivander's shop. On September 1, 1908, he was sorted into Hufflepuff. Newt was described as an eccentric person who felt more comfortable around magical creatures than people. He was very uncomfortable making eye contact and being physically close to another person. He admitted that most people found him irritating. Newt was particularly shy around women he had feelings for. In his interactions with others, Newt often behaved awkwardly, was uncompromising and eccentric, according to his colleagues. Nevertheless, despite his awkwardness and social challenges, Newt, in true Hufflepuff fashion, was a person of firm principles and deep compassion. He never discriminated against people based on their heritage or beliefs, never compromised his moral code for selfish reasons, and was polite with muggles. He was ready to forgive those who had wronged him in the past and was capable of empathy. As Albus Dumbledore later noted, Newt was well aware of the consequences of his actions, and his morality meant that he always strived to do the right thing, regardless of safety, personal gain, or even his own well-being, without seeking power or fame. These traits earned him Dumbledore's respect and admiration. Dumbledore respected and admired Newt so much that he strongly opposed his expulsion from Hogwarts. During his time at Hogwarts, Newt enjoyed studying magical creatures. He befriended Leta Lestrange, a classmate who shared his interest in magical beasts as well as his senses of alienation. Their close friendship began when 13-year-old Leta ran away from bullies and Professor McGonagall and hid in a closet where Newt was feeding a baby raven. He mentioned he would stay over the school holidays to take care of the raven, and Leta, who already knew him as they were in the same class, saw him in a new light for the first time. During Professor Albus Dumbledore's class on Boggarts, Newt's greatest fear was revealed. Newt's Boggart turned into an office desk, and he was terrified of the idea that he would have to work in an office for his future career. By casting a spell to dispel the Boggart, he turned the desk into a mechanical dragon. As dragons, unlike office work, did not frighten Newt at all. By that time, he had befriended bowtruckles, magical creatures that resemble plant stems. Newt earned their trust and was the only one they did not hide from, allowing him to study their social life. However, sometimes Newt showed his temper. Once, he was suspended from classes for a month for insulting a Hogwarts staff member who had criticized his interest in magical creatures. Newt retorted that there are no strange creatures, only narrow-minded people. In support of Newt, Leta threw a dung bomb under the teacher's table. However, in the 1912 to 1913 school year, one of Leta's experiments involving a Jarvey, a magical ferret, went too far, to the extent that it almost killed another student. To protect Leta, Newt took the blame and was sentenced to expulsion from Hogwarts in her place. This upset Newt, but he was in love with Leta, so he could not act otherwise. However, Albus Dumbledore, Newt's teacher at the time, strongly defended him, so he was at least allowed to keep his magic wand. Newt joined the Ministry of Magic in the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures. He spent 2 years in the House Elf Relocation Office before moving to the Beast Division, where his extensive knowledge of magical creatures led to rapid career advancement, making him a magi zoologist. However, his choice of profession did not impress the Scamander family. His mother seemed even disappointed in him. But Newt didn't care, as studying magical creatures was his true passion and calling. During World War I, from 1914 to 1918, and likely while working in the Magical Creatures Control Department, Newt Scamander served on the Eastern Front as part of the Ministry of Magic's secret program to tame iron dragons. But ultimately, the program was cancelled because the dragons only obeyed Scamander and tried to eat everyone else. In 1918, Augustus Worm from Obscurus Books commissioned Scamander to write the first edition of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Being a modest ministry employee, earning only 2 sickles a week at the time, Scamander seized the opportunity to earn extra money and spend the summer traveling the world. Conducting research for his book, Scamander visited 100 countries across 5 continents, observing many magical creatures. He learned about their abilities, earned their trust, and sometimes hit them with his magic kettle if they became too dangerous. In 1925, Newt embarked on a year-long journey to document magical creatures and their natural habitats. At one point, he met a young witch with an Obscurus in Sedan, and although the hostess died, he managed to place her Obscurus in his magical suitcase. He also visited Egypt, where, thanks to a tip from Albus Dumbledore, he rescued an illegally imprisoned Thunderbird, which he later named Frank. His last stop before traveling to the United States was Equatorial Guinea. Dumbledore sent Newt to New York to return the Thunderbird to its natural habitat in America. However, there Newt became embroiled in a confrontation with the greatest dark wizard of his time, Gellert Grindelwald. I won't retell the plot of the films in detail, I assume you have seen them. During these events, Newt made new friends, including the charismatic No-Maj, Jacob Kowalski, and American witches Tina and Queenie Goldstein. Newt developed a romantic interest in Tina, but due to his awkwardness, he was hesitant to engage in a relationship with her. During these events, Newt actually became the first wizard to capture Grindelwald. He plunged into a whirlwind of adventures, encountered new unique magical creatures, mourned the death of his past love Lita, and visited, in addition to the USA, also France and Germany. Newt Scamander played a crucial role in the confrontation with Grindelwald and greatly aided the magical community in defeating the Dark Wizard. Despite the losses, at the end of this story, he was rewarded with a wedding to Tina Goldstein, and the general recognition he finally received, though he did not desire it. But Newt's story did not end there. Newt's later fate. Who did he ultimately become? After the adventures related to the fight against Grindelwald, Newt married Tina Goldstein, and they had at least one child, who in turn had at least one grandson named Rolf. Thus, Newt's lineage definitely continued. He continued to work at the Ministry of Magic and over the following years made many important contributions to the magical community, becoming one of the most prominent figures of his time. In 1947, Scamander initiated the creation of the Werewolf Register, and in 1965 introduced a ban on experimental breeding, which he was most proud of. Newt also closely collaborated with the Bureau for the Study and Restraint of Dragons, which led him on expeditions around the world and allowed him to gather information for new editions of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. In 1979, he was awarded the Order of Merlin, second class, for his services to magi zoology. A chocolate frog was also released in his honor, which, by the way, appeared in Harry Potter. At some point in the 1980s, Newt befriended Hogwarts Professor of Care of Magical Creatures, Sylvanus Kettleburn. Later, Newt sent one of his Kneazles to Kettleburn because he could not clean their mouths. One of his students managed to get along with these creatures and grew fond of them, so Newt allowed him to keep the Kneazles for himself. Later, Newt visited Hogwarts again, and several of his creatures managed to escape from his legendary suitcase, causing quite a stir as they roamed the school. The same student who befriended the Kneazles managed to rescue the creatures from Dumbledore's office, Hagrid's hut, and the Hufflepuff Hall, and also found Newt's suitcase to his great relief. By the early 1990s, Newt Scamander had retired and was living in Dorset with Tina and their 3 pets. He also studied fire slugs in the Brazilian rainforests. At some point before 1992, Newt Scamander wrote a children's anthology of monsters for young readers. In the 1993 to 1994 academic year, he visited Hogwarts, possibly to discuss the publication of a Muggle version of Fantastic Beasts. After his grandson married Luna Lovegood, Newt became the great-grandfather of twin boys, Lorcan and Lysander. Toward the end of his life, Newt became one of the leading authorities in the magical scientific community, a living legend, a respected wizard with many descendants. Not everyone in the Harry Potter world could boast a happy ending, but Newt was very fortunate in this regard. And that's all from me. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell. Your activity is the best reward for me. Thank you for your attention. See you soon.